Alright guys, we gotta talk about this Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom gameplay presentation. I am still processing all of this, and I've seen so many things within the short 10 to 13 minute presentation that I haven't seen in many modern AAA video games released today. So without further ado, let's talk about this. And before we go any further, I just wanted to say one more time, we're trying to hit 500 subscribers before the release of this glorious sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and we are getting ever so closer, and it would mean the world to me if you, yes you, would fuse with that subscribe button and ascend and hit that like button as well. Anyways, let's talk about Tears of the Kingdom. So first of all, we arrive in the Overworld, and everyone says, oh, it looks the same, it looks the same. Well, I'm also curious what people expect it to be different, because there are some differences. Look at all these structures, and I don't remember a lot of this. Maybe I have to go back to this exact same area within Breath of the Wild to see how much has actually changed. But look at that, there's a little settlement there too, and if you look a little further on in the distance, you can see a different kind of tower way off in the distance. So there's already some differences. And honestly, the rest of this presentation shows differences upon differences and changes upon changes. So just putting that out there. And what's really awesome is you can see the Sky Islands just from the ground. You can see the closer ones very clearly. Like if you just pan the camera up like Mr. Aonuma's doing right now, you can see those Sky Islands, but way off in the distance you can see some other ones hidden behind the clouds. And now we see that stone structure falling down from a Sky Island, and of course Link has to go all the way up there and use recall to go all the way back up. Recall is something we've seen in the other trailers. We've seen Link recall a giant spiked ball which enemies might have thrown down at him, but he's using it to launch it back up at those enemies. And we've seen Link do this exact same recall on a stone slab to get all the way back to the Sky Island in another trailer as well. But my slight concern here is I really hope that recall isn't the only way that we can get up to the Sky Islands. I hope there are some cooler, more ingenious, and more, I would say maybe swifter ways to get up here. Otherwise, recall is pretty cool, and I'm excited to see the other ingenious ways in which this ability can be used. Also, going back for a bit, we did see some green swirls and some red swirls littered around the overworld of Hyrule. Again, new things to interact with, new things to play around with, but my point is, what are these green and red swirls? I was hoping we'd get an answer to that in this gameplay reveal, but we didn't. Maybe they're the shrine entrances. Maybe the green ones lead to Zonai shrines in the sky, I don't know. And maybe the red ones are portals to dungeons and shrines in the underground. Another thing about recall is I wonder if we can store kinetic energy within these objects like how we could with stasis in Breath of the Wild, storing up all that energy and just launching it. What if you can recall and send things so far back but with such speed that maybe even it can change the flow of time? I don't know, that would be really fun and cool to play around with. So here we are on the Sky Islands, and the draw distances and the scenery and all that is just amazing. There's so much to pick out here. Like, of course, we can see that giant cube up in the sky. Maybe it's one of the labyrinths. We can see that giant spherical island in the sky. What could that be? And also, we see one of the dragons. Is that one of the dragons we know? Is that Naydra? Because we're overlooking what looks to be the Hebra region? Correct me if I'm wrong here, but that does look like it could be Naydra, a dragon we already know. Also, since we're up here on the Sky Islands, I just wanted to say, everything we've seen so far and everything we will continue to see maintains a smooth, stable 30 FPS. Unlike some other games on the Nintendo Switch, I'm not gonna point fingers here, but... So anyways, these Sky Islands look really awesome, and it's very curious why Aonuma went out of his way to mention these yellow trees. You won't find yellow trees like these back down on the ground. Well, what makes these yellow trees so special? What makes this sky area so special? I guess we'll find out the more we play this game and continue on with the story. So this part was kind of a silly troll move, but it was very funny as well. So what's funny is one of my friends in the chat during the live stream was joking around with me saying, hey, what if the main gimmick of this game is that weapons break faster? And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised or whatever, just joking around. Well, as we see here with this fight against this construct, I'll get into that later, this tree branch breaks after only 4 hits. That's nothing. 4 hits, nothing. I don't remember the durability of tree branches in Breath of the Wild, but 4 hits is nothing. And I was even saying on my live stream, Mr. Aonuma, we've seen this already. We know weapon durability exists. Why are you showing us this again? Well, it was a funny little fake out because he then goes up to this rock and shows us the first instance and the first use of what I think will be one of the coolest mechanics to ever grace an open world game, and that is Fuse. You see, with Fuse, you can effectively combine any of your melee weapons with any overworld object. So as you can see here, you can combine this boulder with your wooden shield or with your tree branch, and as Mr. Aonuma does, he combines it with the tree branch. And with Link's capabilities, he fuses these 2 items and effectively revitalizes his badly damaged tree branch. So with one incredibly complex yet simple idea, the Zelda team has effectively fixed one of the biggest problems plaguing Breath of the Wild: weapon durability. Weapons would break easily. Well, what can you do in this game? You just take your badly damaged weapon, fuse it with something else, and you have a very wonky, strange looking weapon. But what's interesting is with weapon fusing, as seen in this game, you can boost that weapon's power, but not only boost that weapon's power, you might be able to extend that weapon's range. As you can see here, this old stick is fusing with this spear, and now Link's range has vastly extended. I guess the only real gripe I can see with this mechanic is these weapons look really silly. But honestly, I don't care. The fact that you can play around with things to this extent is so cool. I also want to talk about what you can do with the arrows over here. As you can see with this bow and arrow, you can use the fuse mechanic over here as well. But in this instance, it's entirely with your arrows. So in my live stream, I was like, hey, Aonuma, why don't you fuse some raw meat to your arrows? Why don't you fuse some garlic or Hyrule herbs to your arrows? I just wanted to see what that would look like. The whole thing with the choo-choo jelly is very creative. And especially with the key swings, I'm very excited to see how creative the Zelda team has taken this fuse mechanic and what new and innovative ways you can use it to interact with the world and fight against enemies. And on top of that, Fuse not only fixes the problem of weapon durability, but it fixes the problem of having so many unnecessary materials in your inventory that you're not even gonna use. Well, fusing them with your bows, your arrows, your swords, your melee weapons, and your shields is going to really open up some very crazy yet awesome capabilities within this game, and I am so excited for it. So one thing that kind of confused me was this HUD over here. It's basically the same as Breath of the Wild. Of course, when you have your melee weapons, the right D-pad can be used to change your melee weapon, and the left D-pad can be used to change your active shield. But I was wondering, what is up on the D-pad, and why is it an apple? What is this whole like food thing? what's going on here? And then I realized when Link brought out his bow, up on the D-pad is probably for your materials, which you can fuse with your respective melee weapon, arrow, or shield. And as you can see here with this HUD, it says by type, sort Y. And I don't really know what that is right now, because another confusing thing is that when you usually have an arrow out, the right D-pad is to switch your bows and the left D-pad is to switch your arrows, if I'm remembering correctly. But why is the left D-pad still to switch your shield? A little confused over there. So I'm wondering what this Y button does. From materials, will it take you to arrows? Will it take you to other kind of things that you can fuse? I'm a little confused over there, but I'm very, very interested to see how this works. So I guess we can conclude that this up D-pad command will bring up this materials menu over here. Oh, also, we've been seeing a lot of these robot construct enemies here. Well, I will say, once I upload my reaction video, you guys will see how happy and excited I was when this moment happened. Yes, this simple moment of Aonuma destroying the first ever construct and getting the materials, and one of those materials, yep, you saw it, was a Zonai charge. So, Zonai!
We've now explored more of this Sky Island.
Guys,
Fighting with just a branch won't.
did you guys see that?
Also, this branch is almost broken.
The Zonai are confirmed. The Zonai are going to play an integral part in this game, and I'm very, very, very excited to see how that's going to shape up. And one final thing I want to talk about with Fuse. I think we've seen Fuse before, kind of like how we've seen Recall before in past trailers. I think we've also seen Fuse. Remember that flamethrower shield we saw? Remember that hammer cannon kind of weapon we saw in the latest trailer? What if those are fused weapons? I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Now moving on, we get even more of Link's arm capabilities that are going to replace the Sheikah Slate, and the next one we know of is called Ultrahand. I don't know about you guys, Ultrahand seems like a strange kind of name, but I'm interested to see how that turns out and what the story significance is. So it looks like Ultrahand will be what Link will be using to create vehicles and contraptions from materials and items he sees throughout the overworld. Over here, we can see him creating a raft with just 3 large logs and what appear to be wind turbines. What's cool is there seems to be some limitations on this, but not a whole lot, because look at this. We see this menu. Of course, you can move forward and back, but you can also rotate, because the first time I saw this gameplay demonstration, I thought that the closer that Link brought that turbine to the logs, it would snap in place and flip upwards, facing towards the outside, so that it can push the raft forward. Well, it doesn't look like that's the case, because it looks like once you pick up an object with the Ultrahand, you can rotate it in whichever direction you want with the D-pad. It's sort of like Magnesis, but a whole lot more expanded, as you can see. It's so interesting. Anything you want can stick onto anything else that you want, and you can of course create really cool vehicles with this. And maybe not even just vehicles. Of course, we've seen rafts, we've seen boats, we've seen helicopters, hot air balloons, we've seen cars, but what else can we make with this Ultrahand? I'm very curious to see. What's even more interesting is we have this little battery indicator over here. I'm curious what's going to happen once that battery indicator runs out, and what are we going to use to recharge that battery? I think those Zonai cores that we saw earlier will be used to recharge the battery of our vehicles. And here's another cool ability that Link has, and it's called Ascend. And we've also seen this very briefly in another teaser trailer for Tears of the Kingdom a few years back. I will say, I'm a little disappointed with Ascend because I didn't think it would be Ascend. I thought that Link would be able to phase through any obstacle, basically. Not only going upwards, but maybe straight through them, or maybe even going down below. But Ascend is still very cool, because like how Mr. Aonuma is saying, we can forego a lot of climbing that we would have had to do. If there is a way to ascend, it can save a lot of stamina and a lot of time. So that's really awesome. So those are our 4 abilities in this game. Those are kind of like our rune abilities. In Breath of the Wild, we had the remote bombs, we had Cryonis, Stasis, and Magnesis. And in this game, we have Recall, Fuse, Ultrahand, and Ascend. Which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And this final part of the presentation shows just how technically masterful this game can be. Just take a look at this. This construct is about to shoot Link off the floating island, and just look at that. Very safely and happily flying all the way down back to the surface. Not a single hiccup, and this is playing on the Nintendo Switch. Again, I wanted to say, I've been an advocate for the Switch's relevance, its power, and the fact that it can give some of the most amazing and most impactful video game experiences, no matter how good or bad the games look. Like I've said in previous videos, you can check them out. All I want is a game to look decent and have a good art style, but run at a smooth 30 FPS. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't seen much slowdown, lag, or frame drops in this footage right here. It just really shows the true dedication and polish that the Zelda team has for this kind of a game. Also, in terms of visuals and graphical fidelity, I think this game looks fine too. The water textures are great, and the draw distances are amazing. And again, once again, this is running on the Nintendo Switch, which released in 2017, which is using 2015 hardware. Just look at this. Seamless, going from the ground all the way to the sky, going from the sky all the way back to the ground. Entirely seamless, entirely smooth. But then again, this is only a portion of the game that we have seen. Maybe there are areas in the game that will run almost as bad as the Korok Forest in the original Breath of the Wild. There's something that Mr. Aonuma said that caught my attention, and it's the fact that as you're following, you can see many different landmarks and points of interest that you might want to discover and explore. And this reminds me of how when you climbed your first tower in Breath of the Wild, the old man or King Rome tells you to look through your Sheikah slate and go into first-person mode and look for every little landmark that you would want to explore, and just put a little beacon on there so you can find that on your map and go straight to that beacon. I really hope that beacons make a return in this game, because with those beacons it was very easy to find out exactly where I was supposed to go and exactly where I wanted to go. It was really easy. You just look at your map and follow that small little colored icon. Another awesome quality of life feature that I'm really happy to see in this game is on the map, you can actually see the X, Y, and Z coordinates of your exact location. And this is going to be actually very beneficial for when you're looking at guides or when you're trying to tell your friend, hey, I found this thing in this exact position on the map. Think about how easy that's going to be to tell someone, I found this at this coordinate X, this coordinate Y, this coordinate Z, and go to this exact spot on the map to find it yourself. Also, one final thing I wanted to talk about is we did hear a new music. This might not be an entirely new music track, but it's just the main theme of Tears of the Kingdom extended, and it's got this kind of ancient sound, which I'm very interested in hearing more of. It's a very interesting track, and it's very nice that we get to hear some new music for this game, but there is a caveat to this. A lot of the other music that I've been hearing in the overworld and during combat, it unfortunately does sound like it's taken straight from Breath of the Wild. Though I have to go back and give it another listen because I couldn't hear properly over Aonuma's translator talking about what's going on in the game. But I need to go back and listen to that stuff and see if it's actually the same songs or if it's a remix or entirely different songs. But if they are the same, it's going to be a little bit disappointing because I want to hear more awesome, cool music. A few final things I want to talk about before we close out over here. One is the basic UI. I don't think the UI needed a major overhaul. I, for one, was actually fine with the whole weapon switching with the D-pad and the right analog stick. I thought that worked very well. And I think with this new fuse mechanic, I think it's very interesting how they've changed a lot of the controls, because in the first game, up on the D-pad was to change your Sheikah Slate runes. But now it looks like L is going to be how you change your arm abilities, but maybe a tap of L will activate it, and maybe holding L might allow you to switch between the many different abilities that Link has, whereas up on the D-pad is going to be reserved for fusing materials. But what's even more interesting is even with Ultrahand or Ascend equipped, you still have that apple icon. So what gives? What is this fuse or materials menu that is so important that needs to be there even when you're not in fuse mode? That's one big question I have with this game. And one final thing I want to talk about with this presentation and just Tears of the Kingdom in general. I continue to hear people say, this still feels like Breath of the Wild DLC. This isn't anything new. This isn't much of a difference, and that same sentiment over and over again. And I want to ask these people, what do you wish to see? What do you want to see? Because at this point, I feel like we've been given so much with this game. We're getting a fuse ability, and I don't think you understand how big of a deal this is. We've seen Mr. Aonuma play this game and fuse tree branches to rocks. We've seen him fuse arrows with eyeballs and arrows with jelly, and we've seen the sticks fuse with pitchforks and logs and anything. So how far can this mechanic go? How far can fuse go? Can you fuse it with anything? From what we've seen right now, any interactable object can potentially be fused. That is massive. That is a massive deal. And not only can any interactable object be fused together with an item or a melee weapon that you're holding and using, any object in the overworld can be moved around and manipulated and combined with any other object with the Ultrahand. Think about how much additional development time these developers had to put in, all the manpower and all the energy they had to put in to create an entire system revolving around this fuse and Ultrahand ability. The fact that anything can be fused together, anything can be combined to create a vehicle or a contraption or anything like that. I think I now realize why it took 6 years for them to develop this game and why it was delayed a year from 2022 to 2023. All this development time was because they were creating this massively expansive and ingenious system of fusing and creating. This is one of the most creative gameplay mechanics I've ever seen in a video game, and I think that in itself warrants a sequel to Breath of the Wild. But I think the major complaint about this sequel is coming from the fact that the overworld and Hyrule is basically the same. And from what we have seen, it looks very similar, but there's still a lot of changes. There's more civilizations, we see more settlements, we see more objects and ruins and all these things around in the overworld. The towers aren't the same. We don't see any of the Sheikah towers that we remember. We don't see any of the Sheikah shrines that we remember. And on top of that, we don't know what the shrine and dungeon equivalents of this game are going to be. I think having the same graphics and art style as your predecessor doesn't necessarily indicate that it's a DLC expansion. We've seen this for God of War, we've seen this for Horizon, we've seen this for all the way back. We can see this for like Uncharted 1, 2, 3. Were those DLCs? Those are different kinds of games, but I'm just trying to make a point of comparison here. Even Kingdom Hearts. Let's give Kingdom Hearts for example. Kingdom Hearts added a lot of gameplay like Tears of the Kingdom is, but it had a similar kind of art style. So where's the difference there? And not only all of that stuff, but think about this. Along with a changed Hyrule, along with a Hyrule that has significantly changed over maybe a time skip, with interactable objects that you can fuse and move around and combine with the fusion and the Ultrahand gimmick. On top of that, you have an entirely explorable new sky realm. We see a lot of new interesting islands we can explore and go to, and we have seen hints of an expansive, mysterious, and dangerous underground. Land, sky, underground, possibly maybe underwater as well. I think all of this warrants a sequel to Breath of the Wild. I don't think this is a DLC, and I don't understand why people consider this just a DLC expansion. And if you do, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know why you consider this a DLC expansion. But yeah, anyways, that's all for this little quick kind of breakdown video. Sorry if it was a little messy. I'm very excited, and there's just a lot happening right now with this game. I think the marketing is picking up, and I'm very, very, very excited for how this is gonna go. Just little over a month to go until we get the newest mainline Legend of Zelda experience. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and like I said, I'm trying to hit 500 subs before this game comes out, so hit that subscribe button if you enjoy content like this, and give this video a like. It really helps out a lot. This is Nishquick signing off. Have a great day, and go play some great games today, like a Legend of Zelda game, maybe Breath of the Wild, to get ready for Tears of the Kingdom. I'll see you guys in the next one later. Have a good one.